shout out to my boy Mario, aka Charles Blase. A lot of my music is going to be pulled from him, so I guess you should go check him out. He's OG, triple OG. But without further ado, let's get started on the Cash Landrum UFO incident. So this happened in Dayton, Texas, right above Houston, on December 29th, 1980, and it involved Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and her grandson Colby Landrum, who was 6. So they were driving down this empty highway through the piney woods of Texas, and they came up to a diamond-shaped object that was glowing about the size of a water tower, and it was in the middle of the highway, blocking their way. This thing was emitting a huge heat source beneath it. Flames were shooting out below it, and it was rising up and going back down, and it was just intense heat. Landrum told Cash to stop the car because they were afraid they were going to burn if they got any closer. Landrum was kind of religious, and she believed it was the second coming of Jesus Christ, and the road was too narrow for them to turn around. And Cash, who was driving, feared they would get stuck in the dirt on either side, and it had rained the night before. They both got out of the car to examine what it was, and Colby was freaking out, so Vicky went back in the car to go comfort him. But Cash remained outside, and she was like mesmerized by the bizarre sight that she saw. This thing was emitting like crazy heat. So Cash decided to go back in the car, and when she went for the car, the metal body was painful to touch. She couldn't touch the car because it was too hot, and she was wearing a ring, and the ring burned her skin, and she had to use her coat to open the door and get back in there. It was so hot that when Landrum touched the dashboard, her hand pressed into the softened vinyl, leaving an imprint that was still there weeks later. They don't have any evidence of the fingerprint, no photograph exists. And then a little bit after, when they're inside, a group of helicopters started approaching the diamond shaped object and surrounded it in tight formation. They counted 23 to 26 helicopters and later identified them as tandem rotors CH 47 Chinooks, which were commonly used by military forces worldwide. And the object was going up and down like it couldn't move and couldn't get into the air. So I guess these helicopters came and roped it up and hauled it away. And after they were done and the road was cleared, they continued their drive down the road, and they could see the object and the helicopters leaving in the distance. And the whole encounter lasted about 20 minutes. Investigators were searching around for evidence, and they came across a Dayton police officer, Detective Lamar Walker, and his wife, who both claimed to have seen 12 Chinook type helicopters near the same area at roughly the same time. When they all got home, they all started experiencing similar symptoms, though Cash was the worst because she was outside and underneath the ship. But they all suffered nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, weakness, burning sensation in their eyes, and feeling like they were sunburned. Sounds like radiation poisoning. Later, Cash symptoms worsened over the next few days, and she had very large painful blisters forming on her skin. She was taken to the hospital emergency room on January 3rd, 1981. She could not walk, and she had large patches of skin and clumps of hair being lost. She got released 12 days later and later returned for another 15 days. And Landrum's health wasn't as bad, but both her and Colby suffered from lingering weakness, skin sores, loss of fingernails, and hair loss. A radiologist who examined the witnesses' medical reports for MUFON wrote, "We have strong evidence that these patients have suffered secondary damage to ionizing radiation. It is also possible that there was an infrared component as well." Brad Sparks also contended that the symptoms were consistent with a massive dose that would mean certain death in a few days, but since they all lived years after the incident, Sparks suggested that the cause of the symptoms was some kind of chemical contamination, possibly aerosol. Landrum later contacted a number of government agencies and NASA about the encounter, which led her to NASA aerospace engineer John Suessler, who liked UFOs and began research on the case. He had written many articles and a book about the subject. He said that the UFO left burns on the road, trees, and the witnesses. Astronomer Alan Hendry of Kufos also briefly investigated the case as well. Due to the Chinook helicopter presence, it was presumed that at least one branch of the U.S. Armed Forces witnessed the object, escorting or pursuing it, but no evidence linking them has occurred. In 1982, Lieutenant Colonel George Sarin of the Department of the Army Inspector General began a governmental investigation into the UFO encounter. No evidence of the helicopters was found for them belonging to the U.S. Armed Forces. Sarin stated that Miss Landrum and Miss Cash were credible. Also, the policeman and his wife who saw the helicopters were also credible. In 1998, journalist and UFO skeptic Philip J. Klass found a few reasons to doubt the story, which he said when successor inspected Betty's car in early 1981 and used a Geiger counter to check for radioactivity, he found none. He also checked radioactivity when he visited the site of the incident and found none there as well. Sue Sessler, who wrote the book, provides no medical data on Betty's health prior to the incident, nor does he provide any medical data on the prior health of Vicky or Colby. Other UFO researchers point out that high energy ionizing radiation of that kind can cause damage to human beings, also known as gamma radiation, but that does not include radioactivity in objects. So this gamma radiation would not have left behind any residual radioactivity in that area. Both Cash and Landrum later contacted their U.S. Senators Lloyd Bentsen and John Tower, who suggested that the witnesses file a complaint with the Judge Advocate Claims Office at Bergstrom Air Force Base. In August 1981, all three witnesses were interviewed at length by personnel. They were told to hire a lawyer and seek financial compensation for their injuries. The case made it through to the U.S. courts for several years. Cash and Landrum sued the U.S. government for $20 million. On August 21st, 1981, a U.S. district court judge dismissed the case. In the end, they could not prove that military helicopters were associated or present at that time, and they said that they did not have a diamond-shaped aircraft in their possession, as they would say that. Cash Landrum died at age 71 on December 29th, 1998, 18 years after the incident, and Landrum died September 12th, 2007, 27 years after the incident. I believe Colby still alive. But there you have it. That's a quick one, boys. I think they seem to be exposed to some type of chemical radiation exposure. Um, Very small. It was being emitted from beneath the craft. I believe it's some type of reverse engineering, or they didn't have the power source and they were experimenting with nuclear reactors and it went bad and they were just trying to cover it up. Jimmy Carter, who was president during this time, 77 to 81, claimed he himself has seen UFOs and wanted to uncover it. Andy Florio, another UFO burn victim in Arizona, also claims to have similar encounter and is very upset about this as well. But in the end, I think it did happen. I don't think it was aliens. I think it was a military project with them messing around with anti-gravity. Hmm. Makes me think of this patent they released for the anti-gravity technology, the TRB-3s that are flying around. Just makes me think of that. And this UFO video that they released, and then here's going to be a little slideshow of some other diamond-shaped UFO crafts that they don't know what it is, possibly the same thing. That's going to do it for me, Bears. Tell me what you think down in the comments. Give it a like. And I got a little special treat for your closing clip here. Enjoy.
Did you know that when it snows, my eyes become a lot, and the light that you shine can't be seen?
Oh, baby! I'm talking extraterrestrial, yeah.
Ooh,
Extraterrestrial, yeah.